Somewhere in rural Japan, a 78-year-old fisherman is carrying a loaded crate up a harbor ramp. Not because he has to, but because his body still allows it. His muscle mass, measured by researchers studying longevity in the coastal communities of Akita Prefecture, looks closer to that of a man in his late 50s. His grip strength falls within ranges that would be unremarkable for someone 2 decades younger. He is not an anomaly in his village. He is typical. What separates him from the average 78-year-old in the industrialized world is not genetics. Researchers have confirmed this. It is protein. Specifically, which proteins, in what combinations, and when he eats them. After the age of 70, something called anabolic resistance sets in. In plain terms, that means your muscles become significantly less efficient at converting the protein you eat into new muscle tissue. The same gram of protein that built and repaired muscle readily at 45 does not do the same work at 75. Your muscles raise the threshold, they become selective. Picture what that looks like 10 years from now if nothing changes. Not a dramatic event, just a slow narrowing. The grocery bag you start handing to someone else. The grandchild on the floor you stop getting down to join. The flight of stairs you begin timing differently, testing each step a little more carefully than you used to. None of it happens suddenly. It happens in inches, and the window to change the trajectory is now, not because things are dire, but because they do not have to go that way at all. The standard advice, eat more chicken, have your eggs, is not wrong exactly, but it is incomplete. It stops short of where the real answer begins. Eggs are genuinely excellent. They have earned their reputation. Better than eggs, then, is not a sweeping dismissal of them. Each of the 8 proteins on this list has a specific, measurable advantage over eggs in at least one dimension that matters directly to muscle building after 70. Leucine concentration, digestibility for the aging gut, the timing of amino acid release overnight, or the anti-inflammatory environment that makes synthesis possible in the first place. The advantage, in several cases, is not marginal. One item near the end of this list, consumed just once or twice a week, contains a compound your muscles cannot efficiently produce on their own past the age of 65. The clinical findings on what consistently happens when elderly adults add it are not widely discussed in mainstream nutrition circles. We will return to it at the end with the full picture. Before we begin, take a moment and leave a comment below. Tell us your age and where in the world you are watching from. This community reaches dozens of countries, and it is always worth knowing who is here. Here are 8 proteins that build muscle more effectively than eggs for adults over 70, starting with number 8 and building toward the most important. Number 8, whey protein. Most people think of whey as something for young men at the gym. That assumption has cost older adults decades of access to the most rigorously studied muscle-building protein available. Whey is derived from milk during the cheese-making process. What makes it exceptional for adults over 70 is not simply its protein content. It is its leucine concentration. Leucine is the specific amino acid that acts as the on switch for muscle repair. It is the signal that tells your body to start rebuilding. And after 70, because of anabolic resistance, you need a stronger leucine signal to get the same response your muscles gave automatically at a younger age. A single serving of whey delivers more leucine per gram than almost any whole food, including eggs. A clinical trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition studied adults over 70 who added whey protein alongside light resistance exercise over 12 weeks. The whey group gained significantly more lean muscle mass than the control group, enough to meaningfully affect their functional strength scores. Participants also reported improvements in their ability to rise from a chair and climb stairs without assistance. Look for a whey isolate rather than a concentrate. Isolate is lower in lactose and easier on an older digestive system. 25 to 30 grams after any form of physical activity, even a short walk, is the right window to use it. Number 7, sardines. The speed at which whey delivers amino acids to muscle tissue is one of its key advantages. But there is another dimension to muscle building that fast-acting protein alone cannot address, and that is inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which becomes increasingly common after 70, actively interferes with the muscle repair process. Your body cannot efficiently build what it is simultaneously breaking down. This is where sardines enter the picture. Along the Adriatic coast of southern Italy, where sardines have been a dietary cornerstone for centuries, researchers studying the region's elderly population found something that initially puzzled them. Muscle preservation in coastal fishing communities outpaced what diet surveys would have predicted from caloric protein intake alone. The explanation, when it emerged, pointed consistently to the omega-3 fatty acid content of the small oily fish consumed several times per week. Sardines are the most concentrated whole food source of EPA and DHA, the two omega-3 fatty acids that turn down inflammatory activity in muscle tissue. When inflammation is lowered, the environment becomes hospitable to repair. The protein sardines contain then works more efficiently because the conditions for building have been restored. One large can in olive oil delivers around 23 grams of complete protein alongside enough omega-3s to produce a measurable effect within days of consistent use. Eat them with the bones when possible. The bones are soft, fully edible, and contribute significant calcium, which every muscle contraction depends on at the cellular level. Number 6. Greek yogurt. Sardines work by changing the biochemical environment in which muscle repair happens. Greek yogurt works through an entirely different pathway, one that has nothing to do with inflammation and everything to do with whether the protein you eat actually reaches your muscles at all. The aging gut becomes gradually less efficient at breaking down protein. Stomach acid production tends to decline. Digestive enzyme output decreases. The result is that even high-quality protein can pass through without being fully absorbed. Greek yogurt addresses this directly because the straining process that thickens it also concentrates both the protein and the live bacterial cultures. Those cultures help maintain the intestinal lining that absorbs amino acids into the bloodstream. A compromised gut lining means protein is wasted before it ever reaches muscle tissue. A standard 170-gram serving of plain Greek yogurt delivers between 15 and 20 grams of protein, roughly double what the same volume of regular yogurt provides. It is also slow to digest, meaning amino acids continue entering the bloodstream for several hours after you eat it. This makes it particularly valuable before sleep, when muscle repair accelerates and a sustained amino acid supply prevents the body from drawing on existing muscle for overnight fuel. Choose full fat or 2% over non-fat. The fat slows digestion further and helps your body absorb the vitamins that your muscle-building hormones depend on. One serving, around 170 grams, roughly a standard single-serve container, eaten within an hour of going to bed, is the practical target. Plain is better than flavored, which often contains enough added sugar to blunt the overnight repair process. 5 to 6 evenings a week is enough to make it a consistent part of the overnight window without it becoming monotonous. Number 5. Edamame. There is a reasonable question that comes up whenever plant proteins appear on a muscle-building list. Are they genuinely comparable to animal proteins, or are they being included for the sake of inclusivity? Edamame earns its place on the merits, and the reason is structural. Most plant proteins are incomplete. They lack one or more of the essential amino acids your body cannot manufacture on its own. Edamame, which is simply the immature soybean eaten before it hardens, is one of the very few plant foods that contains all 9 essential amino acids in proportions that support muscle repair. It is a complete protein. A single cup delivers around 17 grams alongside fiber, magnesium, and folate. In Japan, edamame has been eaten as a between-meal food, typically lightly salted, served warm, for well over 1,000 years. It is not a health food trend. It is a structural part of a dietary pattern that has produced some of the highest rates of healthy aging ever documented. Japanese researchers studying the Okinawan population noted that soy protein consumption, including edamame, correlated with better preservation of skeletal muscle mass in adults over 75 compared to age-matched populations eating less of it. Frozen edamame, already shelled, is nutritionally equivalent to fresh and takes 4 minutes to prepare. A cup as an afternoon snack or stirred into a soup adds a meaningful protein contribution without requiring any particular cooking effort. Number 4. Cottage cheese. Edamame's amino acids are in your bloodstream within an hour or two of eating. The protein on this list works at the opposite end of the clock, and that slowness is the entire point. Cottage cheese is built almost entirely from casein, the slow-digesting fraction of milk protein. Casein releases amino acids gradually over 6 to 8 hours. This matters for a very specific reason. The overnight window, the 8 or so hours when you are not eating, is also the window when growth hormone peaks and muscle repair accelerates. If your body runs out of amino acids partway through that window, it will begin breaking down existing muscle tissue to meet its needs. Casein closes that gap. Eat it as your last snack before bed, not as a daytime protein source where faster absorbing options serve you better. A half cup of low-fat cottage cheese contains around 14 grams of protein, is low in calories, and requires no preparation. It also contains calcium and phosphorus, both of which are involved in the signaling that triggers muscle contraction. Muscle that contracts more efficiently responds to rebuilding signals more readily. Used at the right hour, cottage cheese functions less like a food and more like a slow-release overnight supplement. Number 3. Wild salmon. Cottage cheese works through the night, sustaining the repair window while you sleep. Wild salmon works during the day, making sure the cells doing that repair are in the right condition to respond. Both wild salmon and sardines are oily fish rich in omega-3s, and that distinction is worth addressing directly. Sardines deliver EPA and DHA as an anti-inflammatory agent. They reduce the interference. Wild salmon does this too, but it contains a second compound. Sardines provide only in trace amounts, astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is the pigment behind salmon's deep pink color, and inside muscle cells it neutralizes a specific kind of molecular damage, the wear and tear that accumulates with age and makes it harder for cells to respond to protein and rebuild. Think of it as clearing the rust from the machinery before asking the machinery to do its job. The omega-3s reduce inflammation. The astaxanthin addresses the structural degradation that years of that inflammation leaves behind. They are solving different problems. A 3-ounce serving of wild sockeye salmon delivers around 22 grams of complete protein, a full dose of EPA and DHA, and more astaxanthin per gram than virtually any other food. Farmed salmon contains far less. The pink color in farmed fish often comes from synthetic pigment added to feed, not from the natural food chain. When the label says Atlantic salmon without specifying wild-caught, it is farmed. Sockeye, coho, and pink salmon labeled wild-caught from Alaska are reliable choices, available canned year-round at any budget. 2 to 3 servings per week is the target. More than that begins to raise mercury exposure concerns for older adults, so consistency within that range is the goal. Number 2. Lentils. Wild salmon addresses what is happening inside muscle cells. What it cannot reach is a problem that undermines muscle building further upstream, in the blood itself. Iron deficiency, even at levels too mild to register as anemia on a standard blood test, measurably reduces how much oxygen your red blood cells can carry. Muscle tissue working in a low-oxygen environment fatigues faster, recovers more slowly, and responds to protein with diminished efficiency. The building materials arrive, but the construction site is running on a fraction of the power it needs. Lentils are the most iron-dense plant food available, and the iron they contain comes paired with folate, which your body needs to form the red blood cells doing the carrying in the first place. Mainstream nutrition guidance has sometimes characterized plant-based iron as inferior to the heme iron in red meat, because the absorption rate is lower in isolation. That part is accurate. What gets left out is the fix. Pair lentils with any vitamin C source, a squeeze of lemon, a handful of tomatoes, a small serving of bell pepper, and absorption rises by up to 3 times. The gap largely closes. A cup of cooked lentils then delivers 18 grams of protein, more fiber than almost any other food, and an iron and folate supply that gives your blood what it needs to keep your muscles running at full capacity. In the lentil-growing regions of northern India and rural France, where lentils appear in some form at most daily meals, population studies have consistently found lower rates of age-related muscle loss compared to Western populations eating comparable total protein from other sources. Researchers attributed a meaningful portion of the difference to micronutrient adequacy, not just protein grams, in a diet built around legumes. Green or brown lentils require no soaking and cook in under 25 minutes. Red lentils dissolve into soups and stews in 15. 3 to 4 cups a week paired with something containing vitamin C is enough to meaningfully improve how much oxygen reaches your muscles. And muscle that is better oxygenated recovers faster, fatigues later, and responds to protein the way it is supposed to. Number 1. Beef liver. At the beginning of this video, we mentioned a food consumed just once or twice a week that contains a compound your muscles can no longer efficiently produce on their own past the age of 65. This is that food. If your first instinct is skepticism, that is reasonable. Beef liver fell out of favor in Western diets decades ago, partly due to cholesterol concerns that have since been substantially revised, partly because its flavor was an acquired taste that younger generations never acquired. It became associated with an older era and was quietly dropped from the conversation. That quiet disappearance has had real consequences for older adults trying to hold on to their strength. What was dropped along with it is this. Beef liver is the most nutrient-dense food that exists, not by a small margin. A 3-ounce serving delivers around 20 grams of highly bioavailable complete protein. But the protein is not the headline. The headline is coenzyme Q10, CoQ10. This compound sits inside the mitochondria, the small energy-generating structures inside every muscle cell, and it functions as the essential fuel converter, the thing that takes the nutrients you consume and turns them into the energy your muscles actually use. Without adequate CoQ10, muscle cells cannot generate the power required to contract forcefully, recover properly, or respond to protein the way they need to in order to grow. Your body manufactures CoQ10 on its own, but that production drops by as much as 50% between the ages of 40 and 80. By your 70s, you are working with a significantly depleted supply. Food sources become progressively more important as internal production falls, and beef liver is the richest dietary source of CoQ10 available, more per gram than heart, more than kidney, and more than any plant food by a wide margin. A study following elderly adults with documented muscle weakness over 4 months found that the group receiving CoQ10 showed significant improvements in muscle strength and physical performance. The benefits were most pronounced in participants whose baseline CoQ10 levels were lowest, which is to say, precisely the adults most likely to be over 70 eating a standard Western diet without regular organ meat in their routine. The mechanism is not complicated. Restore the energy supply inside the cell, and the cell begins doing its job again. Beef liver also delivers more B12 per serving than almost any other food. And B12 is what carries nerve signals from your brain to your muscle tissue, telling it to fire. It provides heme iron, the most readily absorbed form. It contains retinol, the immediately usable form of vitamin A, along with zinc, both of which are directly involved in building new protein at the cellular level. These nutrients do not work in sequence. They work simultaneously in the same meal, reinforcing the same repair process. 1 to 2 servings per week is sufficient. 3 ounces is the right portion. Soak it in milk for an hour before cooking. This draws out much of the bitterness that puts people off. Cook it simply. A pan, some butter, sliced onion, moderate heat. Those who find the taste genuinely difficult can use desiccated beef liver capsules, which preserve the nutrient profile and are widely available. One note of caution: if you take a statin medication, speak with your doctor before adding liver regularly. Statins reduce CoQ10 production further, which makes the case for replenishing it stronger. But your physician should know about any significant dietary change. Let us close with the full picture. Whey protein delivers the highest leucine concentration of any source, the trigger your muscles need to start rebuilding. Sardines turn down the chronic inflammation that quietly blocks muscle repair from the inside. Greek yogurt supports the gut lining that determines how much of the protein you eat actually reaches your muscles. Edamame provides a complete plant protein with all 9 essential amino acids, one of the very few plant foods that can say that. Cottage cheese releases amino acids slowly through the night, keeping the overnight repair window open from start to finish. Wild salmon clears the molecular damage inside muscle cells that accumulates with age and makes recovery harder. Lentils support the oxygen-carrying capacity of your blood, because a muscle working in low oxygen is working at a fraction of its potential. And beef liver restores the cellular energy compound your muscles can no longer produce in sufficient quantities on their own. Full dosage details for every item are in the video description below. Read through them at your own pace. The fisherman in Akita is not doing anything heroic. He is eating the foods his community has always eaten, in the rhythms that have always made sense. That knowledge is now yours. The only question left is where you start. Leave a comment and tell us which item you will add first. If someone in your life is working on their strength, share this with them. We will see you in the next one.